I'd like to call the meeting of this City of Monona Plan Commission to order. Want to take the roll?
Acting Chair Moore.
Here.
Mr. Hamburg.
Here.
Mr. Stein.
Here.
Ms. Fox. Here. Mr. Ganzer.
Here.
Mr. Dorschel.
Here.
Ms. Thomas is excused, and we expect Chair Holmquist shortly.
Perfect, thank you. I'm looking for approval of minutes for October 9th, 2017. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from October 9th?
Move approval.
Do I have a second? Second. Any feedback on the minutes, changes? We're good? All those in favor of approving the minutes from October 9th, say aye.
Aye.
Do we have any appearances? I don't believe we have any forms up here for appearances tonight, nor do we have any unfinished business. So I'd like to move to new business. First up is public hearing on request of Galway Companies for approval of revised civil lighting and landscape plans associated with the General Development Plan, GDP, called Yahara Commons, and the Phase 1 Precise Implementation Plan, PIP, for Yahara Commons at 802 and 900 West Broadway, 6320 and 6321 Metropolitan Lane, and 6406, 6416, and 6418 Bridge Road. Yeah. Would you like to come up and describe for us?
Sure. Hello everyone, I'm Adam Friendall with JLA Architects. We do have the submitted documents on a thumb drive that we can pull up if you'd like to see anything, but we're here tonight for, as she stated, the landscape and stormwater and site lighting revisions for the last time we were here. Those were some of the conditions for the approval. We've got Randy Kalinsky from Veerbecker here to address any questions on the civil side of things, and Jeff Steen from Ken Psyche Design to address any landscape questions. As everyone is familiar with the project, I think I'll leave it at that and kind of open it to questions. Did you want to go through the staff report first, Sonia?
I can do that if you have nothing else. So my staff report reviewed lighting and landscaping. On lighting, I didn't really have many comments. I believe, to summarize what's proposed.
Public hearing still?
Oh, did you want to call for any other public hearings and then close it?
Any other public hearings? Okay. Close public hearings.
Okay, so on lighting, I believe what was proposed are 24 pedestrian scale bollards along the walking paths, some 11-foot high and 14-foot high parking lot poles with matching heads to the pedestrian bollards, and then a whole bunch of recessed commercial lighting. And I think does that summarize it correctly? So it appears to meet our standards in the photometric plan for light trespass at the property line, and I just noted that the finish on the fixtures has not been determined, so the color. Typically, the Plan Commission will, or has required in other projects, the site lighting to match parts of the architectural features like the window mullions or something like that, or perhaps match the corridor lighting. And in this case, Broadway has stone and silver colored poles with black fixture heads. At least that's what they currently have. I'm not sure if they'll be replaced in the future. But those are all the comments on lighting. As far as landscaping goes, this was reviewed once previously at the Plan Commission level, and feedback at that time was that the requirements should include points calculated based on the entire amount of parking stalls on the site, and that includes 104 parking stalls and then an additional amount underground for a total of 246 parking stalls. From the reasoning for this, from my understanding, was that when we're looking at projects like condos on Monona Drive, they have most or all of their parking underground and none at the surface level. So if we were calculating landscaping points based on surface parking only, we wouldn't have any points to require. I also agree that the landscaping on this site should be pushed to exceed standards just due to the prominence of the site and the lack of overall green space. But I was comfortable with the amount of landscaping points proposed because it was in between the minimum if you base it on just 104 surface parking stalls and then the maximum, which included all 246 parking stalls on site. And then I also pointed out that I felt the landscaping was well distributed overall on the site. They had an ample amount of canopy trees proposed with 34, and they also are proposing an additional 1,300 plants or so that do not technically earn points under our code, and that includes grasses, wildflowers, and things of that nature. So the recommendation was for approval. And then we have Strand engineers here today, Josh Straka, who can comment and summarize on the revised civil plans and stormwater.
You got, we'll have them turn it on if they could. Turn on the overhead projector, please.
So overall, like Sonia, you mentioned, we kind of just generally looked at the site again a little bit as part of this project. The lighting is like Sonia said, she kind of looked through a little bit. We just want to make sure that they avoid the transmission lines there. And also, from past approvals, we talked a little bit about the Dane County approval, and just to check that the biobasin can go within Dane County right away as part of that, because that does affect the stormwater approval overall. That's something that probably won't be resolved today, but just something we need to remember in the future as they move forward. One thing to point out in general, oh, I switch back and forth.
They will in the back. They'll put it on for us.
Switch that. What did they say?
There we go. We got it.
Okay. Yep. So fire hydrants, and you can see highlighted in blue here, 2 proposed fire hydrant locations. Monona requires that the building be within 300 feet of all fire hydrants, all corners of the building. So they added the 2 fire hydrants, which is good. The only comment is this one is in the park, or is shown in the park right now. I don't know if that, Sonia, maybe that's a question for you, is does that get squeezed back, or where's the property lines? Does that have to be on the private property side, back on the other side of the walk somewhere? And can that be fit in, or can it be allowed in the park? Probably just a planning thing as we move forward, but something to note as part of this. The other small thing that we were asking for last time, and again, it'll have to be verified as they move forward, is just fire truck access, and maybe you've already done those turning movements or anything that they can get through here, and maybe a detail of what's going to happen out here concrete-wise. I think the city just kind of wants to know, what is that going to be? Thickness, detail, what are we talking about? And again, pretty minor stuff as you move forward. So the bigger question tonight, or kind of review, was on the stormwater. We've been kind of waiting on the stormwater for the entire site, for the full GDP, and how, really how will that look as part of that, with just this first development and then overall fit in on the site. And the requirements per the DNR, NR 151, and the city ordinance is going to require, because this is a redevelopment, 40% TSS removal. So total suspended solids that have to come off of this site in the stormwater as part of the project. To do that, I should point out also that because of the site and the soils that are on site, infiltration rates and the infiltration standards don't need to be met on this site because of the soils. So we're really just worried about the total suspended solids. And that has to come from parking areas or our roadway. As far as the landscaped areas, the roof water, stuff like that, that's exempt. That's noted to have 100% removal. That there isn't solids on that. We're worried about parking areas and the roadway as part of the project. So we received their model as part of this.
Excuse me, I'm going to interrupt so I
Yep, go ahead.
don't get lost.
Yeah.
It's super easy for me to do.
Yep.
40% needs to be removed,
Yes. Yep.
60% does not need to be
Does not.
Okay.
Because it's a redevelopment. If it was new, it'd be 80%. But because this is a redeveloped site, it's only 40%.
Okay.
Per the DNR import, per your ordinance, which is pretty typical. So as far as we received their stormwater modeling, at first there was around 59% is what they were reporting based on what they were going to do. I think, Randy, we kind of worked through it a little bit. It's actually closer to 41. They're still meeting at 41% is what they were removing, and I'll show you, kind of walk you through what what the plan is and what they plan on doing as part of the overall site. So this is kind of a big picture. Let's see how you can see it. If you can see it there. I'm going to zoom this out just a little bit. So I colored 3 sections. Okay, there's this purple section over here. Let's just call that kind of one group. That purple section, all stormwater feeds into, well, this section here by Building A feeds into a bioretention basin. You can see that right here. That's a bioretention basin that we'll go into and it will treat the stormwater. The other parking lot on the other side, Building C in the future, has these larger manholes with sumps in them. So they're 4-foot diameter manholes with a 3-foot sump bottom. So as the stormwater goes into it, the solids will settle out in the manhole as the water builds up and it proceeds out through the stormwater. Those will have to be cleaned every so often in order to take the sediment out. But that purple area itself removes about 30% of the TSS on the entire site for the redevelopment. Then you get to kind of this, well, let's jump over to this orange area. It's a smaller area on Upper Metropolitan Lane by kind of the breakwater and the yacht club today. I believe there's like maybe 4 inlets there with larger manholes and those same sumps. That removes a total of around 5% TSS. So you're at about 35% with just those 2, but we still need that other 5%. And what's happening there is that's happening in the middle. And there's this blue kind of network that hooks up to the streets and also hooks into the buildings, Building B, Building C, and Building A. Again, we don't have to treat that water, but it is all part of this system. And again, there's sumps in all of those. There's nine inlets in there. There's sumps in those. And that actually comes out to what you're seeing right here in the park with a larger sump. The problem with this basin, I should say the problem, I would say the difficulty with this basin is the storm sewer is set fairly low here in order to get this to work. And when I say low is when by the time it gets down to this basin, if you can see that there where I'm pointing the park, you know, it has to be pumped back to the river. It's actually below that river level. So coming into that sump, I'm just going to pull this. I'm going to go a little bit closer to just that one area. Coming into that sump there, I tried to highlight this in yellow just so everybody could understand it. You'll see kind of an invert elevation of, let's say, 842.65. Plus you have 3 feet below that for the sump, so you're around 839.65. The water level today out on the river is 845.20. So it's about, what would you say, about 6 feet there or so, higher than the
It's
water.
kind of like New Orleans, or
Yeah,
a little New Orleans.
kind of like New Orleans. But now remember, the surface of this park is actually set, well, roughly between 848 to 847. The 100-year flood elevation is 847.70, so it's about 848. And that's pretty typical. This area does, on a FEMA map, show that it does take on a little bit of water as part of a 100-year flood elevation. Now, those lakes are controlled, and they ultimately, the target max that they want to be at is exactly the level it is today, 845.20. So they can control that with the locks, but if you have a giant storm over the greater Madison area, you do have a risk of that coming up. So we have to design for that as part of it. So in order to get the TSS removal, the 5%, this all has to be set with sumps, and it has to go into this sump, and it can't get the water from the river, can't backwash into it. If you can imagine, if the water comes up and it starts to flood the system, they don't get the TSS removal, and they don't get their 5%, thus you can't really model it. So right now, it's kind of a difficult situation a little bit. We've talked about it, and in my report, I've talked to Randy a little bit about it. You know, can we remove some of the stormwater? And I think there's a possibility to do that. Maybe not take on quite as much volume here. Right now, A comes into this. And I don't know if you, oops, I'm sorry, I forgot to zoom this out. Building A comes into this network. And maybe A can come this way instead. You know, the buildings can come this way instead, so they're not part of this network. Building C comes into this network, and maybe that water that falls there can also go out. And I think both of those are probably feasible options. So you could move basically the buildings and all the parking lot this way. And you could also, instead of all of Building C in 2 spots coming into this blue network, maybe you can get part of Building B, go back to Bridge Road, as part of that lot does today. You know, those are things we probably would have to work with the developer a little bit on, because the city's going to be ultimately in control of designing this street and this kind of blue section of storm sewer. along the road, this orange and blue. So I think there's still a little bit to be determined there. It would be really great not to have a stormwater pump station in the park as far as an operation and maintenance concern. And there may be a few ways to do that. Right now, what's happening is this road set up so low to tie back into the yacht club and the breakwater that we have to maintain some of the elevations along here, which is setting the road low, which is also setting the storm sewer low. So if those buildings were out of there and we did not have to match in the asphalt, we could pick it up a couple feet and probably get this to drain. And I still think maybe there's some ways through open channel drainage or a little bio basin down here. And maybe, Randy and I talked about it, maybe we can raise this road a little bit up, maybe about a foot. We'll be able to get rid of this pump station. But that still is to be determined, I guess, as part of the project. It does work stormwater-wise. It's just probably not the best solution. Well, it might be the best solution, but we're not sure. I think we got to vet it a little bit more there. And I think that can be done. I don't think that's, I don't want to hold back the development because that one piece has to still be figured out, but there still needs to probably be a little bit work done there. Yeah. So that's mainly the big stormwater push. The only other one thing I had, and we didn't talk about this, Randy, is so this purple, these are 4-foot manholes with 3-foot sumps, and it ties back into here. But there's parking below that.
Those are incorrectly labeled. I've spoken
Okay.
to JLA. They're going to be tied into the storm sewer, and routed through the basement.
Through the basement,
Yeah,
okay. So that would be kind of different.
36-inch diameter.
Okay. So just as far as, and those might still be modeled that way, maybe?
There's no sumps in there, so
Okay.
that's strictly the base.
Okay. Then that issue's resolved. It's just labeled different, yeah.
Yes.
Josh,
Is there
will
any
that-
questions? Yeah, questions, because there's a lot of information here.
Yeah, so if those don't have sumps in them, will that reduce down the treatment of that water?
I mean,
No,
but he's saying that the model didn't have those to begin with as
Oh,
sumps in there,
Correct.
so we would be
Just
okay.
going to the bioretention
Right.
basin.
These never had sumps in them because they're routed to here, and the bio basin is where,
Where they're being treated?
well, they'll be treated. Yeah. Yeah, so that will just come through the ceiling, and probably, so that you don't get too low, you'll hang them on the ceiling in the parking structure, and then they'll go up to the basin.
Couple questions, comment first. I strongly agree with what you're trying to do here, because that park, if I understand it right, hasn't even been designed yet. And I don't think the middle of that park is probably the right place for a
Yep.
pumping station,
Yep.
so to speak, a storm sewer pumping station. Also, as we know, you can clean the water a lot more efficiently if you don't add all that roof water. Adding a lot of roof water creates a lot of bypass water. You're trying to treat the
Yep.
little bit of dirty water in. Question is, does the DNR and the county allow us to get that much cleaning out of a 3-foot sump? Because speaking with Jeremy, a lot of times he doesn't like it because of resuspension.
Yeah, you got to be a little bit careful with resuspension, but
Does the
it's,
SLAM model though allow
the
it?
SLAM model does allow it.
Okay,
Yep,
because
does allow it,
his pet peeve is he believes it's resuspension, so he doesn't like it.
because it kind of gets back in and it kind of resuspends itself. Yeah.
It does in the next
Yep.
storm sometimes,
Yep.
and a lot of it depends on the frequency of the cleaning, of
Yep,
course.
frequency of the
Like any
cleaning.
storm water measure, if you take care of it, it'll function all right.
That's the other reason I think it would be nice to get more of the stormwater out of here, so you don't have that much volume.
I think it would
coming
help
through
you a ton on long-term maintenance too, without having all that roof water going through the storm sewer system that you're trying to clean. I think the more you can segregate those two, the happier you're going to be. And if it can cut that volume down going through the park and we can raise that up a little bit, I think that would help the park a ton. As far as that fire hydrant, I would think it should be behind the sidewalk on the building side. That's where our fire department is used to seeing them. In an emergency, we don't want them, where is it? And when they look for a hydrant, it's behind the sidewalk on the building side. And you've got an area, if you went to straight back from there, where, a larger area where it could go.
Here, maybe here. I think, is that what you're talking, Chris?
I think you're in the sidewalks. Oh, no, yeah, right there. Yeah, right there.
Right, maybe.
And when I looked at the landscape plan, I went and with you speaking and checked that there's a spot there that you could probably just readjust a little landscaping and throw it in there. I think it would help the fire department just that's where you look, and B, it would help for park planning not to have it in there. Excuse me. But I think the biggest thing for me is the safety on it. Floodplain, are we good that have no net fill in the floodplain?
It does not appear that we're going to have.
Because I see some of the floodplain, I went back and looked as into where the building's being built and some of the
Yeah.
patio's going to be.
Somewhere
So
in
did
there.
we just make sure we have a net neutral on the floodplain?
I
It'd be
mean,
something
right.
just to double check.
I think maybe we should just double check it, but I believe that that's still flat and maintaining the grade along there, but that's something we can look at a little closer.
We're allowed to do a little bit of minor grading as
Yep.
long as we just don't add to
Yep.
it. As far as the park elevation going, 47 to 48, the lake was at 46.8 for time this year with all the rain we
It
had.
was.
So
Yep.
literally, the lake would have been with no waves lapping at the edge of that park area, which is another good
Yep.
reason not to have a pumping manhole in the park, because it could very well go underwater with any, you know, I know it's not a lot of waves on the river, but I mean, it was within a couple tenths of that elevation. So that, to me, could be problematic. So if we can have some type of a closed system where we can't get water into it, or trying to pump it back out, that would be nice, because then we're just recirculating the lake. That's it on civil. Other than, you know, we talked about it a lot, and we normally leave storm water to our consultant, and I know if you've read the recommended condition, it's that, you know, you work with Josh on it, and then if it doesn't work out, you think he's unreasonable, you can always come back to planning commission and say, hey, we've, you know, come to head here, and we just don't agree. I don't anticipate that, but that, you always have that right, and that's why that condition's written that way. Thanks.
I have a question, at the risk of potentially the wrath of at least one person on the panel. And that is, if we're obviously so concerned, appropriately concerned with the stormwater issues, would not, I mean, I recognize that the TSS, 40% TSS requirement relates to parking and roadway and not to roof, but given that a green roof in fact reduces stormwater by 60 to 100% and cleans the water at the same time, would not looking at green roofs be another way to mitigate the volume, given that we're looking at increased cost of rerouting, regrading, and other or having to put a water feature in the park that we don't even know how it's going to be designed yet.
I mean, the hard part is, yeah, you're putting the green roof on, but there's really no, I mean, you can't really model that. You're going to be able to model that, Randy, like that?
Well, no, I mean, I think,
Because that's exempt?
well, it would be,
Yeah.
which it is now.
Yep.
So, I mean, you're strictly looking at, I mean, the key here is getting the water out of the park.
It is,
The
yeah.
volume away from the park.
Right.
And so, to me, you're gonna reroute it either to the storm sewer off of Broadway,
Right.
or you're gonna go to British Road. Now, you know,
I wonder,
We don't,
nobody can hear you if you
right.
could.
I mean, the hard part about the green
Well,
roof.
we can hear you, but all of it.
I think the hard part about the green roof question is
Yeah.
we're not certain where that's going to be yet and if that's going to actually happen on C. So to plan for it and to pin it down at this point and
Right.
account for it,
Right.
you might, come back and really, maybe it's not as feasible once they get, further down the line.
It's also clean water,
But it's also clean water.
so it doesn't help our cleaning.
No, that's the thing, is it's clean water when it falls, so it doesn't help the cleaning, the TSS.
It's not a part of the 40% regardless.
No.
is it?
No.
Rough water is
Not to
exempt.
say that it's a bad idea, it just doesn't
No,
change.
I mean, it's a benefit.
It doesn't
Green
change
roof's
our
an add,
conversation.
kind of add on top of the benefit that you're already getting.
It's
but-
a volume control.
Yep, it's a volume
Right, but
control.
it reduces the volume by 60 to
does.
100%.
It does reduce the volume as far as
Right.
sizing your pipes, but as far as removing the sediment,
Right.
that's a different, those are two different things.
But it actually does reduce, I mean, the water that whatever is released from the roof actually is cleaner water,
Yes.
having been filtered by, in the same way that it would in bioswale on the ground, it serves as a filter for the water that's coming off of the building.
It does, yeah. It does, except the only hard part is, we say the water coming off the building is 100% clean already. It's exempt from the standards. It's assumed to be 100% clean. Only in the DNR and everybody else's eyes. That, it's for the redevelopment, it's only the parking and the street stuff that has the actual sediment that gets tracked onto it. But you're right, there is some cleaning as part of it. Your point is not incorrect, but the way it's modeled, it's not accounted for. Yeah. Did you want to say something?
No, I think you've touched on everything. I mean, like you said, it's not a TSS issue, it's a strictly peak flow. But I think you hit on everything.
So if I understand this, then to eliminate that in the park, what you need to check is to see if you're maximizing the basin on Broadway and the sewer on Bridge. I mean, is that really what you're talking about then?
Yeah, a little bit, and probably picking up the road a little if we can, and see if we can maybe daylight the pipe and maybe just channel it if we can, but it's going to be tough. One other thought
But
was...
the blue represents 5%, right?
Yeah, or we're really looking for around 5%. This is approximately 5%. I mean, you could go back to, and Randy, you can tell me if I'm crazy or not here, because I haven't seen the model as much as you have, but you're getting 30 up here, you're getting really good, but could you have sumps in this here that you're removing sediment from? Can some of this come to a small basin? I don't know if you guys can see that, in this side and get a little bit more. So could you give another 5% up here where you're already doing so good? And I don't know, I could be squeezing an orange here to get it out.
The hard part with that, as part of ongoing conversations with Dane County Highway, we're putting some cross sections together through that area, through this area in here to show them and ATC exactly how that's going to look when this is done. And there are a couple of, it's hard to see on here, but there's an inlet from the Monona Bank and end wall here, as well as from the ditch up further to the west here. And then as well, there's an inlet that comes in and discharges into the existing swale now. At time of full build-out, we're going to have to hard pipe that all the way, because we are planning some additional parking up on the west end here. And so it kind of shuts that swale off and prohibits flow, and just based on proposed elevations in the parking lot through here and the existing sidewalk, that's going to be just, it's pretty flat through there. So you will not be able to grade in a swale, with the side slopes and get that to drain all the way back. In the interim, when phase one goes, we are simply going to stub out the storm sewer structure with an end wall and pick it up as it sits today. But once, phase two and phase three ultimately go, that is going to be hard piped the entire way.
The only way to maybe get more is to reduce parking, and obviously, we've been down that road, right? So you're maximizing the parking, which limits the space that we have. They have the ability to treat some of the storm water. So it does push some of it, the treatment, to go back down to the park. Regardless, though, down here at the park, I mean, you still have this issue with,
Can't see your finger.
oh, I'm sorry. You still have this issue with it just being so flat down here and water backing up into this line no matter how you set it. So there may be a little give and take here, that even if we can get it to flow, maybe some of this line some days is full with a little bit of water. It's got a check valve on it at the bottom, and the pressures push it out, but once in a while, they have to clean it out because it gets full of sediment.
Chris?
Two questions. The last thing you said, a check valve. Do we really want a check valve? Because
I
if
don't.
those aren't maintained, then they become an impediment.
I agree.
And if the water is going to back up in the line, the worst case scenario is going to come out inlet in the road, and it's going to.
Right.
But once the water's that high, we still have the same situation. My experience
I
with
agree.
check valve,
Yeah.
people don't know they're there 5 or 10 years from now. They don't get
forget about
maintained, and they seize up.
They just lock up.
Yeah, and then they impede the flow.
Right.
And going
You
back.
just would have to clean it then, right? Remember to clean it as the water drops. They'd have to come and maybe jet that out once in a while and clean
Probably.
it out. Yep.
Your idea here isn't horrible. Right here, we're outside of where you'd hard pipe it. Is there a possibility to get a little bio in there? And pick up whatever cleaning we need, and if not bio, is there another way we could do it? What type of, you have borings yet? You know what type of soils you have?
Yeah, there's some borings.
We do have,
They all re-engineered anyway, that's well.
Do you know what
to
type
dig
of
it out,
soil?
yeah.
Do you know how close you are to groundwater?
groundwater throughout the site, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's 844.
Yeah,
So your parking lots are within 3 feet of groundwater, so.
And our parking lot over there is up at about 858.
58,
Oh, wow.
44.
A
So-
lot of that is coming up.
Okay, so then my next question is, could we do a little bit of permeable pavement somewhere and get some cleaning out of it? And then the cleaning would all be taken care of.
Can I ask a question? I'm out.
Yeah, come on up, absolutely. You gotta come up because the people that are listening can't hear you.
Okay, so one thing with
It's on
that,
Amazon Prime tonight, so if you want.
one thing with that corner.
Free for 1 week only.
One thing with these corners, and maybe you guys are gonna talk about that, is I think there's some signage that's proposed on both, maybe
There is,
one or
yes.
two of these
Okay.
corners, so that might be another location of, because I was thinking about maybe pushing this tank basin further up and filling that gap too, but I think there's a sign
The
that's
sign
going.
is on the east side of the drive.
Is it?
I guess my question, and then I can leave it to the experts, but
Your project.
can we, is it possible that when the bridge road reconstruction happens, that we take both C and B to Bridge Road and divert it from the park? You know what I mean, and do some type of basins here? You know what I mean, to catch sediment and then take it to the park, or take it to Bridge Road?
Well, you're talking just the buildings though, which the TSS wouldn't come from the buildings.
Well, what about all this though?
Yeah, that.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
I guess I'm
Take
tying this to,
Take this back. We'd have to lay some extra, maybe, resize the stuff on Bridge Road, which there is a cost to that.
May I suggest
If
that
it works.
although there's a cost to Bridge Road, we're also responsible for the other infrastructure, so
Mm-hmm.
either raising this road or putting a pumping manhole with, to maintain in perpetuity is also a cost to the city. So as a trade-off, I would much, for the city's sake, much rather see something that's gravity flow and occasional jetting or back truck.
Totally agree.
Meaning to bridge.
Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely.
And that's kind of where Randy and I left it as we were sitting here tonight. This kind of all happened within the last week, so some of this information is fairly fresh. But the idea behind it is 100%, can we try to get rid of this pump station?
Absolutely.
Can we do something up here? Can we do something different down in here? I
And
think
and
there's
whatever
maybe a combination.
infrastructure we have in the park, try to keep it out of the middle of the park.
Yeah.
I don't know what
I
the
think
plan
we'll-
will bring, but
Yeah, no, I think the big thing is just kind of rerouting the direction that we're conveying the roof runoff.
Yeah.
I think
Absolutely.
that is,
That might make a big deal.
that's the big thing here. And, as Josh had kind of mentioned, the thing that's difficult is the elevations along the yacht club and some of those
Kinda sets
existing
everything.
properties. It sets everything, and we can shift that low point slightly. The 100-year overflow or the overflow route in case the storm sewer gets backed up is ultimately I want to maintain through the loading dock
we
there.
can
And
go uphill from there. Again, it's a
Yeah.
cost for the city to raise that road, but it also solves a problem for the city. So I would think the city would be strongly in favor of
I think
Right.
it's
a
all
solution
you know,
along
I
those
mean,
lines.
that's
So-
all type of bridge, yeah.
Could I just ask you to address one of Chris's questions that wasn't addressed, which was, because as you might imagine, I'm also interested in it, which is given the content of the soil, the samples you have, and what's there, is permeable pavement a possibility to address in any of the parking lot for that matter, not just a corner of it or?
go ahead.
Can I answer? I actually did a lot with permeable pavement.
Yeah.
I don't think the parking lot, the more I think about it, is a good candidate because you'll have too big of a run-on ratio. And you're limited, you shouldn't go over 3-to-1, you're allowed a 5-to-1, it's a lot of maintenance, and I think the run-on ratios in the parking lot would be extraordinary. But in some of the areas where we have parking, on-street parking in the city right-of-way, would be ideal places to put in a little bit of permeable, where you might have traditional pavement down the travel lanes, but have some permeable where the cars are parking. We'll have maybe a 1-to-1, 1.5-to-1 run-on, so we'll get a good life out of it. And if we're too close to groundwater, it'd just have to have a liner. But it sounds like it might not even be too close.
So you're talking like in here, you know?
Any of those areas.
These
In
parking
there,
areas,
up
outside
in
of where the
here.
traffic runs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we've actually done a lot of test work for permeable pavement. We've worked with a lot of communities on it, and that's a great place to put it. And the mixes have come up so much in the last just 5 years. They're so much better than they used to be. There's a test plot on the east side of Madison. We're still monitoring it, and right now it looks like we're probably getting close to 80% cleaning with it. Right now, the standard will allow you 65. That's been updated in SLAM. And it started lower. Right now, standard's up to 65, and we kept it conservative. I'm on the technical standard committee that wrote it, but it probably is getting 80, so it does a great job, and the cleaning's all on the surface. So even once it's our pavement, and in, say, 15 years, whenever it gets plugged, every BMP we put in, whether it's a bio-basin or whatever else, fails. It's designed. It's supposed to catch sediment, and when it gets full, that's considered failure. It's its design life. Same thing will happen with that pavement, but if it lasts 10, 15 years like that, and we replace just the pavement, the aggregate storage layer, the under drain, everything stays. All you do is replace just the pavement surface. So it's not in a tight, almost, this isn't urban, but it's kind of like an urban downtown setting where you're really struggling for cleaning. That's a great place to get it.
Okay.
And the roads are some of our very dirtiest water we have. But the city, again, would have to not sand in that area. You can't sand where you have permeable.
What about the possibility of running bioswales on those two boulevards on Lower Metropolitan Way
I was going to
Running
comment. I mean,
to
if you're going to go with
to the south? I mean, it's already a pretty naturalized planting mix, which was one of my comments for later. Is that a possibility to pick that stuff up there, and you could still have some of that
Are you
woody
talking like right in here?
on either side of Lower Metropolitan,
Right here and here?
heading, to Broadway?
So, to me, I think you gotta, the way we kind of approached this was, some of the maintenance costs, with the permeable pavers, is that cost something that the city wants to take on in lieu of catch basin cleaning? And so, we kind of evaluated what some of our options were to meet the 40% requirement, and we thought that this was the most beneficial. There is potential to place some bioswales in that area, but, you got to kind of take a look at, now you got sidewalk flumes running across that in the bike path, which necessarily isn't the worst thing in the world, to get water there. And right now, we're running a typical cross-section, a crown street, but then our parking is then pitched back to the curb and gutter that runs along these parking stalls. So some of those things we can easily revise, elevation-wise, and get water into those areas. It's just is the benefit of, and probably for a bioswale, I would say yes. But what does that do to our overall loading? We'd have to evaluate what does that do to our loading for this pink area, because we're getting, I know it's 30%, and I'm sure that would increase. What does that do? Do we still have catch basins with sumps then, or not, or is it completely remove them, to meet our 40% requirement? But it is definitely a possibility to put those in.
Chris?
On the east bioswale, if you were to consider that, how close is your underground parking wall? Is it right up to the edge of pavement, or what I'm wondering is, do you want to infiltrate water right tight to the parking structure?
No, you have to be 10 feet away.
Well, you might not have that on the east
Right,
side.
on the east side, you are correct. So this dashed line, it's hard to see with the overlay of the
I see
red
it.
line, but it's right through here.
So that
So
would,
this one would be out, but you could do something on this
Be
side.
out, or could you structure it so that wouldn't there be like an under drain there that could convey that water away from
They
that wall, or is that still too close?
They don't allow infiltration within 10 feet of a building
Oh.
wall.
That would be tough.
so worst case scenario, you'd have to line it. If you had engineered soil and mined it, you could still get your water quality benefits. I just mean, it's another option when you look at it.
But you might be able to get something along this side. Potentially. It'll be easier.
Other questions? Other questions related to stormwater? Get rid of the pump.
Right. I guess right now, the way to look at it, I think is worst case scenario, we have a pump station that we do not want. Better case scenario, we kind of work on this so we can try to eliminate that and we have a better solution. But it does work with a pump station, so, I mean, they can meet their 40%. It's just in this case, we'd like to try to do it differently. And I think we can, but we have to work on it a little bit more.
So we can, Nancy, we can separate the approval of Civic from the lighting and landscaping?
I think so.
Or Brian?
That'd be fine.
I actually have other question related to your report, and that is, there were a number of other items besides the sump pump issues. Specifically, number 4, you said the previous comment discussing location of
Yep.
lighting poles still stands.
Yep.
Number 5 still stands.
Yep.
Number 7 still stands. Number 8 still stands.
Yep.
So where are we in relation to addressing those? Because it sounds like from your report, they were not, your other comments, your previous
Yep.
report wasn't.
Yep, correct. Yep, as I stated that in the beginning, yep, that those things still have yet to, we're waiting to see them.
And
And I don't know, Sonia, what your thoughts are on that, but.
As part of the originally approved PIP and GDP from June 26th, we're required to work those things out with the applicant prior to approval of things like building permits, so they will be addressed.
Okay.
They aren't seen as, big overall items, but something can address it, they move along.
So, Dale, it sounds like you're calling for potentially separation of the stormwater related civic issues from the
Well,
lighting and...
I'm just asking if we can do that, because it would be nice to be able to move on, and if landscaping can get approved for them, and lighting get approved for them. But I'm not sure how that works.
Chris has a comment.
So my suggestion would be, since the proposed plan meets our requirements and meets the DNR requirements, that if they're able to work out and staff approved, I mean, this would be a consideration for when we get to that point of if they're able to work it out with the item removed from the park and it still meets that standard between staff, I wouldn't see a problem with separating out and making them come back out there as long as it's met whatever it is that we set as this is what we'd like to see.
Staff's recommendation is we approve all of it with the caveat, the condition that they have to work out all the storm sewer items, so I don't know why we would separate it unless you're uncomfortable with it. I mean, if you think it needs to come back here, otherwise, the way the motion's written right now, it would be approved condition on them working everything out with Josh's firm and staff, and if they don't agree, it has to come back here. So it gives the applicant the ability to work it out and keep moving forward.
What is the emphasis on the pump, which has come up tonight?
That would be the part that I would suggest we might add.
To try to eliminate the pump station.
Yeah. Right, in other words, the emphasis in what's drafted is not, there is not an emphasis on the
There is
pump.
not, correct.
And I guess I think there should be, yeah, if it can be added, that would be fine, but it sounds, I certainly get the impression that everybody would like to see that be moved out.
Yeah, so maybe that's added in there. If that isn't worked out, then we come back, right?
Anything else in relation to the public hearing portion of this before we move on to consideration of action?
You want to talk about the landscaping?
Yep. Next up is the landscaping. Absolutely.
Hello, my name is Jeff Steen. I'm with Kent Psyche Design. You probably all remember me. Yeah, we've been through these plans, and one of the comments last time we were here was the integration of the the landscaping with the bioretention area, which we've covered. It definitely has a naturalized aesthetic, which is something I go for a lot, and heavy on native and native cultivars. I planted it as heavy as we could, but also keeping in mind requests from the development team on maintenance, and tried keeping it a low-maintenance garden that we could eventually develop into the broader park and development. So that's where the plans are. Open to comments.
Questions, comments? Yes.
Certainly, I'm not qualified to read through all the plant material and know exactly what it's going to do. I think generally it looks really great. I am with staff on the point distribution, in this case to bring in all the underground parking and apply it to points, I think is kind of inappropriate. So I'm really comfortable with where you ended up with points. Certainly would not object to the addition of some of the canopy trees in the islands also that staff mentioned, but I don't think it's imperative. I will note that, so as far as all the plantings go, I think it looks really good. I'll note that, bear in mind that the note has a maximum 5-foot height for their signs, and there are 5-foot plantings in front of it, so you might want to make some adjustments there. You won't have no visibility when it's time for your sign to go up. Otherwise, I think it looks good.
Anybody else? Chris?
My question is, on top of the parking ramp, I understand you probably can't put a lot of canopy trees. I'm not clear. Some of that writing is so small, I can barely read it. And I've got old eyes, but what kind of vertical height do we have in those planters?
Sure. So my understanding so far is that best case scenario, I'll have 18 inches planting soil.
Oh, my goodness. Really?
You can grow a lot in 18 inches.
Is that accurate?
For the depth of the, might have to be that much, I think. In that neighborhood.
Yeah. So canopy trees are out.
Right.
And I think some of the largest plants I have in there are evergreen for structure, and they're about 4 foot max.
4 foot max.
Yeah.
So I just go to Rob, see if there's anything.
It's a struggle. I just dealt with this on a project.
I know it is.
18 inches, it's a maybe. A couple of comments.
Yep.
The ajuga I would get rid of in the islands.
Okay.
I just don't think that fits. Maybe something like a rudbeckia might be a little bit better. I think ultimately your plant selections, given the situation, and if you can give a little crown to that island planting, you get a little more planting soil. Excavate and get as good a soil as you possibly can in there, so it's not just gravel. But I think your choices with the grasses, the aronia, shrubs, it's kind of who knows, but it's a pretty good choice, I think.
Yeah, salt tolerant.
Yeah, pretty hardy.
Bulletproof.
The 2 boulevards along Lower Metropolitan Place. Plant selection is pretty good. One thing I would look at is in the shade garden mix. Some of those plants are big, like really big. Like Joe Pye weed gets, and that's going to start flopping over into the sidewalk and bike path and all over. And just making sure you're not getting some of those species that are way too big in there.
Okay.
And they're not going to be in shade for several years either. So before you finalize that, as far as the plant numbers, I have no problem with what you've shown because you don't get points for any of the perennials, and there's a million of them on here. So, and I think they're just as impactful as the woody plants. So, I have no problem with the points. Little things like some of the bed lines, maintenance is an issue. I don't know if the design software creates all those squiggles. I would like to see an edge, a naturalized edge on the bed lines. I can't require it, but it looks a heck of a lot better. At Qdoba, they put in landscaping and it didn't get a shovel cut edge or a aluminum edge or a vinyl edge or anything, and it just doesn't look that good. So I know you're gonna want it to look good, so that would be good. Your winter berries that you planted, I think you planted just the female variety. You're gonna want a male variety in there as well.
Dandy and the.
Yep. Is this gonna be irrigated?
Probably not. We
Any of it?
usually spec 1 year of, temporary irrigation.
Okay. Okay, yeah, just looking at some of those species like in that shady area, if that's what you're gonna go with, then they're gonna need a lot of hydration. So that was my comment on landscape. Are we doing lighting now too, or just landscape?
We're just focused on landscape at the moment.
Okay.
What's your thoughts? Yeah, Chris?
Well, my question is landscape, but it also is lighting. I'm having a hard time lining up. The plans are a little bit different, but it looks like a couple of canopy trees could be really near or even under a light pole.
Shouldn't be.
Okay.
We'll check.
Just double check that. But the lighting plan is a little bit different, the parking lot layout. I'm sure it's been revised since you did the landscape one or vice versa, but I'd look at that. And at the very least, Aaron, when you're planting your trees, look up before you, thanks.
I love the lights you selected. I think they're great selection. Kind of contemporary and different for the area. I like them.
All we saw in there were lights for the path though, right?
No, there was pedestrian as well. The arbor light. It's 14. There's 2 different mounting height, I think, right? 14 foot and 11 foot.
Can we just stick with the landscaping for a minute before we jump to lights? It's all right. I just want to give him an opportunity to also to tell us, to speak to us about the lighting too, before we go ahead with. So any other questions, Susan? Your end about the landscaping? Anything about the landscaping?
I don't have any renewed knowledge of the plants, the types of plants. I appreciate that commentary, but I agree with the comment about the plants too, that the additional plants to me make it important, given the say it, so I'm fine with it.
Okay, Griff?
I'm fine with the points also.
Okay. Brian, anything else on the landscaping?
Nope, look
No?
good.
Okay, great. Thank you. Would you like to come up and tell us anything about the lighting?
It's a yes.
Not a requirement, I just want to give you the opportunity before we dive in.
Sure, I don't have a whole lot to say. The goal was to meet the Monona standards for light levels. We were working through with Enterprise Lighting in terms of pricing and getting things in the right neighborhood, but for the most part, I think the aesthetic that is represented by those fixtures is well matched to our development, and if we can find something very close to that, if it's cost prohibitive, but I think that the package that they put together is quite desirable, and that's about it.
Okay. Questions about lighting? Comments about lighting? Rob, anything else? No? Chris?
Looks
You're
good.
You're good? Rob, you're good? Gail, did you have a specific question you were asking? No? Okay. Okay. Do we have anything else on the 3 things before us, civil lighting and landscaping, before we move to consideration of action?
I don't think so.
Thank you. Close the public hearing on this and move to B, consideration of action on request by Galway companies for approval of revised civil lighting and landscaping plans associated with the general development plan called Yahara Commons and the Phase 1 precise information plan for Yahara Commons 802 900 West Broadway, 6320 and 6321 Metropolitan Lane, and 6406, 6416, and 6418 Bridge Road. Do I have a motion to approve? Yes.
Move approval with condition 1 that the revised stormwater management plans, including eliminating the stormwater lift station, shall be submitted to the city's consulting engineer and staff for review and approval, and the second sentence as written, and add condition 2 about the edging for the landscape areas.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Susan, the second. Any other discussion related to the action? Chris?
I'm sure you're going to have some type of edging around your landscape areas on a project of this scope, and you're responsible for maintaining it, but I think it's good practice. It wasn't done, the landscape plans was a good pickup, and I think it just needs to be mentioned. We didn't specify what type of edging, but the type that'll work the best for you in this life cycle analysis.
Low maintenance.
Yeah, thank you.
Great. Anything else? Any other discussion before we? All those in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next up, consideration of action on a comprehensive signage package for Quick Trip at 6400 Monona Drive and 105 East Broadway, represented by the Cross Sign.
Hi, everybody. My name is Caleb Kaminsky. Is this the proper spot here for the paperwork?
Chris?
I have to abstain. Thank you. It is. You want to set it up so you can read it? Zoom yourself in and out here.
Okay, very nice. Okay. So I am just briefly going to go over the project PDQ conversion for 6400 Monona Drive, 105 East Broadway. Basically, it's a sign package. The goal was just to get the sign package approved with Monona's standards, sign standards, which I believe it has currently. Obviously, I'm here to double check, answer the questions. I don't actually work for Quick Trip, but I'm going to try to give you guys a general idea of what we're planning on doing. We're essentially doing 2 wall signs on the store building. We're doing 2 fuel price signs on the canopy with Quick Trip logos. We're doing enter and exit signs, and we're doing car wash signs on the building with car wash direction signs. We're doing also 6 4-foot tall directional signs for the site. Does anyone have any questions so far on that? Otherwise, I'll just run through the plans generally. So basically, this right here is going to be the wall sign on the south elevation. And it just says Quick Trip. It is a red LED lit sign. We have a 12-inch tall by 48 long car wash sign. It basically just says your choice, touch-free or soft touch, and this is a non-lit sign. Moving on to the next portion. If no one has questions so far, I don't think anyone does. We're going to be looking at the west elevation. It is just a Quick Trip sign on the building, and it is a 2-foot tall and then a 12-foot across by 1-inch LED red high LED letter that will be mounted directly to the wall. The next thing we're going to move on to here is the pricers with the Quick Trip logo to the left portion on the canopy elevations. There'll be 2 of these. Again, I believe these are within guidelines in Monona. Again, I'm not positive, but I believe this was already pre-approved to my knowledge. So if anyone has questions. This is basically the other canopy elevation with the Quick Trip price reader. This package here is the south side and north side Quick Trip enter signs, as well as the south side, north side auto gas car wash signs. They're double-sided signs, they're 4 feet tall, and within guidelines, to my understanding. Again, I'm from the Milwaukee area, so I'm basically clueless here. So you guys gotta let me know. Again, just a bunch of other 4-foot post and panel signs on the west side and east side elevations. Auto gas car wash and enter sign, as well as an auto gas car wash with an auto gas car wash on the other side facing the west side. We also have a single-sided directional sign on the west side with an access to the car wash arrow. These signs are all the same size. The last piece of paperwork I have here for you guys is just a general site plan for the new Quick Trip. Over here we have the gas fill-up section, we have the new store, we have Rose Lawn Avenue on this portion, we have Winona Drive on this portion, and then we have East Broadway on this portion. So that is the general overview of the project.
Go ahead.
So I want to point out some of the reason that we asked to have this on tonight's agenda was, one, there was a switchover, although much of this was part of our previous conversation. I felt like given there was some change in color and schematics and other pieces, that it was important that this group actually have just a look at it, even though there was likely no concerns. As you can see in Sunny's report, that there were no major concerns, and a lot of these things have been discussed at this group already. I just wanted to throw that out there so people are clear why we're here. So,
Thank you.
I have one question.
Yes.
And Sunny, you might help me recall the sign number 9, that directional sign, which is back on Roselawn. Was that in our previous site approval of a directional sign on Roselawn?
As far as I can remember, and my records show, we didn't actually approve any signage plans. They were probably included in some materials as concepts, but I don't remember, we didn't look at it at that level of detail.
As Brian's just indicated, obviously this is a recommendation from you. Do you want to say anything more about your?
Yep, Plan Commission approval is required because it accompanies a zoning permit, which this received. I have no concerns as summarized in the staff report, and approval is recommended as proposed.
Dale?
The only question I have is I unfortunately was not here when Quick Trip came back through with their revisions from the PDQ. Am I assuming correctly that the beige directional signs relate to the colors on the building?
Yes, they're going to be a pretty close match. They'll match the, I don't know if you guys, I'll put the drawing back up on CS1. They'll be pretty similar to this desert sand color on the 12-inch by 48-inch long car wash signs that basically say enter and exit, and those are non-lit.
Okay. I was just wondering why the color changed, so.
I couldn't tell you that one, to be honest.
Well, I assume they related to the building, but without a color drawing of the building. That's it, they're fine.
Any other questions? Do we have a motion?
Move approval.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor? Indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Section D, public hearing on request by property owner Joe Linzig for approval of a zoning permit for exterior alterations and facade improvement grant project at 6324 Monona Drive.
Good evening.
Hi.
Do I have that the right way? No, Chris?
No, just so you can see it.
All right. Yep. Great, so we want to do a facade improvement on the property located on Monona Drive. Currently, there's 2 apartments up above, and down below is the hair salon. formerly known as Sheer Bliss. It still is called Sheer Bliss, but I took over the rentals of the chairs, and we're going to do some improvements inside and to the facility as well as color changes, bringing some wood products into some of the walls and jazz it up a little bit. So we're looking to apply for the facade grant. Cozy Home just moved in next to us. They're kind of an earth tone concept to their business too, and that's what we're going to stay with. So I can answer any questions. The working name, Off-Broadway Salons.
Imagine that.
We were just throwing things out and someone said, oh, well, why don't you go with Off-Broadway Salons? We really haven't dialed in what we want that sign necessarily to look like and what the parameters of the space we have to use yet. We'd like to match that up with the ground sign as well, because there's a ground sign out there on the island in front of the property. So, but that's what we're trying to achieve here, so.
Yeah, can I take delivery on food when I'm sitting in the chair, getting my hair done?
Just food or wine also? So.
I'll take a liquor license.
Questions for Joe? Chris?
Comment first. Excuse me. I think it clearly meets the parameters of our facade grant. We could argue about the pennies, but there's enough money being spent here that it meets the parameters to fix up for our facade grant program. I think that's one of our main considerations for tonight, is it not?
Yes.
Fine.
Sunday, can you help me remember if this property has come before us for a facade grant in the past with the previous owner?
Still when Joe owned the property, it was here a couple of years ago, and I think it was completely different at that point, what you wanted to do as far as design.
I don't even know if we came before you with the facade grant
It
improvement.
was here at one point for a
Was it here
pre-hearing
one time?
conference, but didn't
So.
move forward.
I apologize, I don't even
Clearly-
remember that because I've been on so many different projects.
Clearly,
so.
this meets the standard that we had, and I was just curious and trying to remember back with the previous one, and if there was approval or a denial, and how substantial a difference, or maybe it was just general feedback at that point.
Yeah, and I think it just didn't move forward, perhaps your timing.
Yeah.
So I don't think there were any major concerns with it.
Looks good.
Thanks.
Chris?
And then for our, our other item of consideration tonight would be a zoning permit for what he's proposing to do, correct?
Yes.
Excuse me. And I think we came here before, I probably mentioned it too, but that island out front is begging for a tree.
I was begging to have them plant one in there.
I know,
I'd like them to change the dirt in there too, because they loaded it full of gravel and sand.
It's still begging to have
I know.
a tree in it.
Yeah.
So,
So I have no problem.
I mean,
If you've ever been down to the Off-Broadway Draft House, you see how extensive I go with the landscaping. When this project is done, that's just a no-brainer with the perennials and a nice tree there as well. So, yeah, no problem at all.
I'm still obligated to mention that.
Right. Okay, good. That is not an issue whatsoever, so.
Other questions? Chris?
Oh, I'm waiting for Mr. to answer, but since he's not saying anything, are you considering doing anything to break up all that IFAS? It's a lot of IFAS with one color.
Yep, we were looking to bring in some metal products, somewhere in there to break that apart and to give it that, I've kind of been into that earth tone and rustic look, the throwback stuff. So, yeah, maybe to bring something up into, even into this corner here on this entryway here, here and in the corner and where the doorways are too. Yeah, it is one big area of a lot of the same color EFS running down the side, so we'd like to do something.
It is, and perhaps it's the preliminary nature of this, but it would, again, I'd like to hear what the rest of the commission thinks, but it'd be nice, and maybe it just doesn't render well, I almost spilled my water in the colors that we're given here, but it'd be nice to see something, I don't know what,
Yeah,
just
I
to
think
break
something
up.
specifically in the doorway areas here, because those are kind of natural break areas, and we could.
You want to attract the eye to it
Yep,
anyway.
Yep, and we could frame that out.
Okay.
I don't know if we could do anything really in that front window area there. And, you know, there's going to be some color choice yet in those overhangs. I want to keep them a metal-looking product, so I'd like to match that
Okay.
with whatever those entryways are, yeah.
Thanks.
So,
Great. Other questions?
I think it qualifies for the grant. I have no further questions.
Susan?
I'm fine. I agree with trying to add some detail to make it more interesting, but that looks fine to me.
The rendering does not include windows, or are you eliminating a lot of windows in the apartments?
We're only eliminating one up in the front, on the face of Monona Drive. That window actually, that window is actually situated right here. The other windows are staying where they are. There's not a lot of balance to that building. So we're at least trying to balance.
They're just not rendered.
You just left the walls off the rendering on the north elevation.
Yeah.
This window's here, this window here, this one is an air conditioning unit here. And this is a window which is, yeah, we're missing the air conditioning unit here, so that's a window, there's an air conditioning unit. Actually, yeah, it's not exactly right here. There's two sets of
Are
windows.
you getting rid of any windows on that side?
No.
Okay.
No, we're not getting, but we're getting rid of the window on the front. And it's situated right here. Yes. We're just trying to balance that out a little bit,
You just want something to excite.
so. And signage.
Rob, any other questions?
I agree with Chris's comment about adding some detail on that side. and Looks good.
We even thought about we got that nice cedar up above and bringing a different color wood product down in them doorways is probably where the route we're gonna go, but we do have metal products available to us that we can add to in some areas. So.
Sonia, would you like to share your recommendation?
Sure. So just to outline the process, this is a pre-hearing conference. We won't be taking any action tonight. The way that it works is, first it goes to Plan Commission for a public hearing, and we hopefully have a consensus on whether it's eligible to move forward with the facade program. And then we take it to Finance and Personnel, which will happen on November 6th, and they will review the proposed grant amount of $10,000, and then it comes back to Plan Commission for final action with any revisions that were requested. Things that we've already discussed will be in the notes for that, and then the notes that I have written in the staff report also include that we should see the elevations of the south and east walls. Are you proposing any changes there?
No.
So the south elevation that faces towards PDQ will still be the white vinyl siding?
No, we're gonna wrap, we're gonna wrap that around.
Okay.
At least, I believe, 20 feet back. And then we're hid by the building, and that vinyl will come down, but we'll probably put vinyl up that matches
Okay.
closer to the cedar. And the east side, it'll be vinyl in the back too. So, there is a garage that's not shown here, that's that two-door garage in the back of that property too. We're gonna match. That's not even shown or bid on this. All right, I don't think we even did that. We're gonna do that EPIS to match the building as well. And as well as I didn't think that pertained to the grant part of it, because it's the back building, so. So we're gonna make that match the building too, so that's
Okay.
directly straight going east as you pull in. So
Okay.
we'll match those two elements as well, so.
And the budget that you submitted includes costs for a dumpster. Where's the dumpster currently?
No, that was cost for, that dumpster was for removing of materials and stuff.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Your budget includes costs for lighting. What are your plans for?
We're gonna put lighting in each of those overhangs too.
Are they recessed underneath the
Yeah,
canopy?
recessed in there too, and I do think this project, you talked about some elements on the building, there's shepherd hooks out on Monona Drive, I think we're gonna look at putting some shepherd hooks laying down the sides of the building. So, at least on the north-facing side for sure.
Okay. And then I had the same comment about the ephes, the extent of the ephes on the first floor, and landscaping on the site was limited, which we've also addressed. So those types of revisions should be submitted in a revised plan set when we come back to Plan Commission.
Okay.
Terrific. Yep.
I should have prefaced my comments by saying thank you for deciding to reinvest on another property on Monona Drive. Appreciate that.
And I'm glad your property's getting developed too.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, number E. Pre-hearing conference on request by property owner. Joe? For approval of the zoning permit for exterior alterations and facade improvements grant project at 6324 Miller Drive.
I think we just covered that.
They kind of blend together.
We did the public hearing.
We didn't really.
Pre-hearing kind of together.
Right, we didn't like close the public hearing, and there was a lot of confusion, I thought that, we didn't realize we merged them together. So then, we have reports from staff.
The next meeting is November 13th. Right now, I'm still tentatively canceling that second meeting in November. If something comes up, we may have a meeting, but I'm directing applicants to other agendas. And December 11th would be the other meeting this year. And as far as projects out there right now, we still have the possibility that Craig Frank will return to CDA and then Plan Commission. And we're still discussing concerns with the proposed hotel. I think those are the only two bigger projects.
I'm sorry, you said you don't have anything for November 13th? I mean, I would hate to bring everybody in, but I have a couple signs for Phoenix that they really want in the ground before winter as they complete what they're doing in my building is going to be really their sales facility where they bring a lot of people in and they want to make sure that their signs get up, so I'll be sending you.
Are those ground signs?
I'm sorry?
Ground signs?
Yeah, they're ground signs. I'll express again my ongoing objection with having to bring those in. They're 5 feet, they're 24 square feet apiece, the setback is appropriate. There's been signs in both the locations I'm talking about. But they need to go to Planning Commission.
So it's a good thing that we brought up some additional funds to be covered, to hire a consultant to help us look at some revision to our plan.
Yeah.
Because our sign subcommittee was struggling finding time to get together.
So otherwise, for November 13th.
Struggling or never had a meeting?
Just never had a meeting.
I was trying to like some cover.
I don't recall having a meeting.
A couple of people on it have resigned, I think, actually.
Well, Jim Bussey was on it.
Yeah,
I
so
know.
was.
We're having trouble scheduling the meeting.
Sharon? Was it Sharon and Jim
Yeah,
Bussey and I?
Sharon and Jim, I think.
Well, I can have a meeting. They're gone.
That would require me to have time to work on it.
So are your signs going to be aluminum then, Dale?
Huh? Yeah, interior lit plastic, vinyl. No.
So as of now, I don't have any applications for the 13th, but there are 5 Mondays in October, so applications are not due until next Monday. So we might still have that meeting, and you can put your signs on the agenda.
Okay. All right, just make them put them up.
No.
Which everybody else, never mind. I get into trouble.
Anything, yeah.
Sunny, in our next report, I know sometimes it's not easy to keep.
I will get you your conditions of approval spreadsheet. It's fine.
It helps us, and I know there's just lots of things on staff's plates, but having that running list of what's out there for conditions of approval, I think helps keep us on our toes of what is it that we put out there as conditions of approval, and to make sure that we're keeping up our end of the bargain.
I'm sorry, I don't know what you.
That nice sheet that says these are all the things that we approved and items that are outstanding.
Oh, I see.
So we can keep tabs on you and your signs.
Yeah.
Anything else? No?
Move adjournment.
Second.
Third.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.